Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. BlenderEd, Blender HD, if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Monday, July 3rd. And you know what we do on Mondays? It's Mondays with McCool. We bring on James McCool, the co-author with me on the theory of daily fantasy sports, how to think like a professional DFS player, 15-hour audio DFS masterclass, as well as theory of DFS for advanced players, which includes his custom Excel tools. Pick those up. Theoryofdfs.com. Good morning to the chat room in the YouTube chat. Give me those thummy thumbs and the thumber thumbs, and celebrate independence by giving you the thummy thumbs. I don't know what that has to do with each other, but whatever. Do it anyway. Tomorrow we got Grinders Live. Remember, next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, no shows. It's the All-Star break. So I ain't going to be here. No one's going to be here. Don't show up. You won't see a thumbnail. Whatever. James, it's the All-Star break next week. We're about halfway point during the MLB season.
Yeah.
What have you learned so far, halfway point in the MLB season, and what are you using the All-Star break to tweak things, to work on things?
Things that I have learned this baseball season so far. Stack the Braves.
I thought early in the season was stack the Rays. I thought it was stack the Rays.
It was stack the Rays earlier in the season. So, okay, here's the way that things have gone. Initially, it was stack the Rays, right? And then it was stack the Rangers.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was a period.
And then it was stack against Oakland.
Okay.
And then it was stack against Colorado. And now it's stack the Braves.
So what's it going to be next?
Stack the Padres.
Because eventually they're going to be good. Eventually.
That's next. Yeah.
Eventually. Regression. Do your models say that the Padres are due for a regression?
Yeah. Yeah.
A positive regression. Do you hate James? Here, side note. Whatever. It doesn't matter. Full note. Doesn't matter. The term regression tends to have a negative connotation, as if like, oh, they're doing well, and now they will regress. But people don't understand regression. It doesn't mean positive, like, or negative. It just means like regressing to the mean in either direction is what regression is.
Right. So I actually recently had kind of like a little conversation on this on Twitter. So in most of my content creation, I still use the terms positive and negative regression, even though like as a statistician, I understand that that's dumb and like that doesn't actually make sense. Regression to the mean happens both ways. The mean sits in between the outlier existences, right? So regression, if somebody is doing exceptionally well, we expect them to regress to their mean. If somebody is doing exceptionally badly, we expect them to regress to their mean. It's the same thing. But when you're creating content, like, I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with giving the reader a little bit of understanding about where they are going to regress to. It's like contextual understanding, because most people who do not have like a good background in statistics are not going to understand that when you say regression, it means it on both ways. So helping the reader a little bit, I don't think is that bad. I was told that using reversion to the mean, positive reversion and negative reversion, is a little bit more like contextually accurate. But I think that's more confusing to the reader to have then both regression and reversion mentioned in an article. And it's like, if I was writing,
there are plenty of readers that don't even understand what regression is.
No, for sure.
Joey Ohtani is just going to hit a home run every day for the rest of his life.
He might.
Right?
He might. Yeah, and so that's kind of the other thing. Like, it's you walk this line of when you're in content creation, you have to walk this line of being correct in the way that you're saying things and being helpful. And I think that it kind of gets annoying sometimes. I think that it's more annoying when people point out that there's no such thing as positive and negative regression. I think that's the more annoying thing than people
saying. Yeah, but they are right.
No, they're right, but it's annoying. Like, you don't have to walk into a room and be like, oh, listen to me be smart. It's like, I don't care about you, dude. Like, I don't care.
It happens to be I do something similar. I tend to use the terms median and mean interchangeably.
Right.
And they are different from each other. But from like you said, from a layman's perspective, it's just like I'm talking about like the middle numbers. Like I know especially depending on the sport, the mean and the median may not be exactly the same, but they're probably around the same. And to explain projections and to explain distributions, like, well, the bat projections, they're mean projections, but these projections are median projections. It's like it ain't changing anything. Just understand that this is like there's about 50% of results in the set higher and 50% under. Like that's the key point. Whether or not we use the term mean or median. And then you're right, James. I do get emails or DMs or just replies on Twitter, as long as I'm not rate limited. That is like I listen to your stuff and I have a math background and it's hard to get into when you're interchanging mean and median. It's like you understand what I'm doing. I'm like sometimes it's mean and sometimes it's median, but for me to be completely technically accurate, it doesn't matter for the purposes of daily fantasy. From what I'm explaining.
The actually people out there on Twitter who want to actually people about that kind of shit. It's like, just there are so many more important things in the world going on than me caring about that person.
I think the only time that it matters more, I think in daily fantasy, it doesn't. If you just treated the mean or median projections and it doesn't matter one or the other, I think that's fine. I think it's more for prop betting. When you may be viewing mean projections, but the betting lines are based on medians. So it's just a matter of how many outcomes are above and below that number. And even though, like, the problem is that a mean projection, all the outlier values are averaged out, and you're not getting an exact number of like because to win a prop bet, you just want like how many more outcomes are on one side versus the other, not like what the average outcome. It's very similar. Cardi's bat projections have the home run column. And I explain this on Grinders Live a lot of times also. That the home run number, like here's the home run projection, 0.32. So it said that's a mean projection. So people take it as, oh, that means a 32% shot at hitting a home run. And I go, I mean, it's close. It's probably more like it's more like 29% to hit a home run, not 32. You're close, but the 0.32 takes into account the 2 home run games and the 3 home run games and maybe the 4 home run games.
Right.
That it's like the home run prop you're betting on has, dude, once they hit 1 home run, you're good.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a 2 home run and you're not trying to score fantasy points or anything like that. So because the projections are means, you have to the median is most likely on those type of events. Stolen bases, home runs are actually going to be lower.
Yeah.
But hey, if there's enough value on a side where it's 0.32 and you're treating it at 32% and the betting line is like plus 150 for a home run, like you should be betting that anyway. It's just slightly less value, but still positive.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of semantics and there's a lot of technicality that goes into the work that we do, especially on the modeling side, right? And on the content creation side. What technicality do I do? What's up?
What technicality do I do? I just look at the work.
Yeah, I say we as in me and Cardi. I don't mean you. Okay. You're removed from this. You don't actually do it.
Is it we? I thought you're including me.
No, I'm not including
All you. I do is interpret your work and then use it for my own good. Right? You actually do the work. You and Cardi actually do the work.
Yeah, we actually have to do things. And
I don't know how you do it. I don't know why you do it.
Because I like helping people.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, but I'm really good at it, and I like helping people.
Well, that's it. And I like coming on every day and yelling at people.
We live our dreams, Jordan. I do actually. usually you and I don't review slates, right? We don't usually talk about the slate coming up, but I do want to talk about the slate that we have today.
What, the slate where you could do whatever you want?
This is the worst pitcher pricing that I think we have had all year. It's
I thought you hate Blake Snell, though. I thought you said Blake Snell was like $7 million overpriced.
And now he's not. Now he's incredible.
Oh, okay. Now he's not.
Yeah. Now he's
2
really
months
good.
ago, you're like, Blake Snell's the worst pitcher in the history of existence.
You got to roll with the punches. You got to update
your small sample size stuff. You're like, oh,
well, it treats me well. And now he looks very good, right? So Blake Snell, I understand that his projection is 19 fantasy points on RotoGrinders, but let's be realistic about what Blake Snell has been able to do recently. All right, his last 5 games straight, he has double-digit K per 9. He has double-digit strikeouts in 4 of the last 5. He has 35 plus fantasy points in 4 of the last 5. And now his price actually went down based on his last outcome, and he's only 8,600. Okay,
he's got to face Shohei Ohtani, who hits home runs every day.
Oh God, you're right.
But it's lefty. That means it's fine, right?
Right. Yeah, it'll be fine. Everybody knows that Shohei Ohtani only hits a home run every 3 days against a lefty. So I think we're in the clear here. Blake Snell at 8,600, by my estimates, is somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000 underpriced for this slate.
So he's a lock.
Let's move on from that.
He's a lock, right? He's a lock. You just say he's a lock, and then Blake Snell does Blake Snell things. He has 4 walks and gives up 8 hits, and he's out in 2 innings.
Right. Yeah, he has a lot.
Can't happen.
It can happen, absolutely. So let's move on to the next guy here, Brian Wu. All right, Brian Wu has had his worst outcome has been 19 fantasy points. That was his last outcome where he was 6,900. He has 2 outcomes over 20 fantasy points. He looks really good by every advanced metric, right?
And he's facing the Giants in San Francisco, which is a good ballpark.
Right, good ballpark. And San Francisco just gave up a career strikeouts to Chris Bassett, who is not as good as Brian Wu, okay? Brian Wu, his last outcome was 19 fantasy points. He was 6,900. He is now 6,600 in a good matchup on this slate. I think he also is arguably $1,500 to $2,000 underpriced.
Okay, which means he's going to get killed tonight. Okay.
Which means he's also going to get killed. Atlanta, their cheapest hitter is $4,100. It's Eddie Rosario. Okay. They have 5 hitters over $5,000. You can afford a full 5-man Atlanta stack today with Brian Wu and Blake Snell, who are both average. Blake Snell is averaging over 30 fantasy points per game in his last 6 games. Brian Wu is averaging over 20 fantasy points per game in his career in the majors. The cash games tonight, I never play cash games. I want to play cash games tonight because you can do that. And you can do it easily because they didn't raise the price at all of Pittsburgh against the worst pitcher on the slate. So looking at this slate, how much value, where do you think the value is? I want to hear your thoughts on where the value is on this slate. I know you haven't looked at it.
I'm looking at it right now. I mean, I'm just looking at the bat projections. The bat actually, as Michael Grove, projected pretty well for 5,300.
Sure. Yeah. And I get that. He's a worse pitcher overall than Brian Wu for me. If you were looking at things from my perspective, where I think that these pitchers are multiple $1,000s underpriced, we have Atlanta, who is ridiculously priced. We also have San Diego and the Dodgers. Walk me through your thought process on this slate from that perspective.
Well, I mean, I just played Snell and Wu and then play someone other than Atlanta.
So you would fade the bats.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that in general in baseball, that's what you would, if you had a choice, if you're playing one lineup, and obviously if you're going to play an Atlanta stack or something, then you're probably not going to play the chalk combination of pitchers. Like my attitude would be, yeah. I mean, the pitchers are always going to be less variant than hitters by far, even though you'll run into blow up games. But there are also decent pitchers on this slate. I mean, you could play Tyler Wells, Joe Ryan at 10K. I mean, he's Domingo Germán, right? Coming on. Hey, how does your model like Domingo Germán? It's a perfect game. His projection in your system should be like 84 points.
Well, when you have a perfect game, your BABIP is 0, so the next game isn't going to look that good.
Yeah, I think that's going to regress. I think the BABIP of 0 is going to reverse.
Yeah.
Have some reversion.
It's going to have some negative reversion, right? It's going to experience regression. Yeah. No, my models really like Brian Wu and Blake Snell. They're fine with Joe Ryan. But then after that, we have a lot of guys who true average doesn't really like a lot of these guys. A lot of guys sitting in this 250 to 265 range. You have Austin Cox over a 300 true average. Like there's a lot of things that look relatively bad. I tend to agree with how RotoGrinders looks at this slate from most of the pitchers sitting in this 13.
Right, it looks like the bat likes you paying up for Ryan and playing a lot of Cleveland, Minnesota.
That makes sense. I could buy that. I think Minnesota.
Right, even if we put in Wu here, let's say we put in Wu, right? The optimal still is like Cleveland, well, Pittsburgh also. I mean, like Pittsburgh projects well for their prices as well,
right? Because they're super cheap, super
right.
cheap. So, I just wanted to highlight on these kind of things because a lot of people will look at this and they'll look at how good Atlanta has been recently, and they'll force in Atlanta rather than taking the drastic. I thought
you said the goal, that the whole secret of DFS that you learn is that you just play Atlanta every week.
Well, no, now it's the Padres.
Oh, it would change. Oh, it's changing. I thought maybe it would change at the All-Star break.
No, we're moving on. It's the Padres this
week. Oh, okay. Once the weekend, the 4th of July comes around, that means tides are turning.
Yeah, tides are turning.
There's no scientific method to this. Just that's it.
No, with vibes. We're going off.
We're doing it on vibes. Okay,
it's a vibe check. I just want to highlight.
You have to expect Atlanta to be popular today.
Right? Yeah, no, I think I cannot see how Atlanta is not the most popular team stacked on the slate because you can afford them, and people like we have seen people punt on slates where they shouldn't to get Atlanta. A couple nights ago, I understand that people had great success doing it, but people were like game stacking pitchers in cores so that they could get Atlanta. And it worked out because Atlanta put up 19 runs and hit like 7 home runs. But like the general understanding right now is that people are just going to do whatever they can to get Atlanta. And on a slate where it's not hard, I could see Atlanta approaching like 45% owned on like Acuna and Albies and
we don't have them that high owned.
Not well. It's 10:18 a.m. I mean, a ownership projections
are ridiculous. I mean, Albies is 5,900, Acuna's 66, Matt Olson's 64, Murphy's 54, Riley's 48. Even the cat's going nuts.
Do you mind? Do you mind? I'm gonna throw something out. Hold on.
You have 2 cats.
Relax.
I didn't know you had 2 cats.
I do have 2 cats. I have the big gray one over there, who's being kind of a dick, is Kershaw, and then my little princess is Meredith, who Meredith is actually the better fighter than Kershaw.
She would be the higher salary fighter. She'd be the 9K fighter.
Yeah,
MMA, and the other one would be the $7,200 one.
Yeah, but I think Kershaw would be more. I think he'd be higher owned because he has better knockout potential. He weighs
okay, so better inside the distance.
He weighs probably 4 or 5 pounds more than Meredith. He's way bigger than Meredith is. So he has, we're looking at, but as you can see, I mean, Meredith is she knows how to go for the weak spot. She's got submission. So
right, so she's got volume striking.
Yeah, she's really good fighter. Meredith should have been named Mookie. Meredith is older than Kershaw. Otherwise, maybe we might have gotten there. Actually, Kershaw is about 2 years younger than Meredith. So
you named Kershaw because of what? Because the best analytical pitcher of all time.
Yeah, Clayton Kershaw. Yeah.
I mean, from an analytics standpoint, I
don't think
Pedro Martinez.
I think it's between him and Pedro Martinez. Yeah.
And Mariano Rivera if he pitched every inning the way that he
sure pitched. Yeah. If you wanted to consider that, but it's you have to relegate that difference between closers and starters because closers just it's like you could say that Devin Williams, if he was going to be like a full-time starter with how he pitches now, would be untouchable. right? But like one of the reasons he's untouchable is because he just gets to go all out for 1-2 innings or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, so this slate, I mean, Ozzie Albies, Ronald Acuna, Matt Olson, that they're Austin Riley, all grossly expensive, right? Like this is the most expensive that I think I have ever seen a team overall.
Like,
I
let me
don't think
try
I've
to
ever
play. I
seen a
can play
team.
all of them. Let's see. And then what will be the rest of my lineup? No, you wouldn't be able to fit that. You wouldn't be able to fit that in, even with Snell and.
Well, not with an optimal. You can do it with a Pittsburgh stack. You skip over Riley for Orlando Arcia. See, I pronounced his name correctly this time.
Arcia.
And then you get with, or maybe you have to skip over Olson. Yeah, there's
right,
Grove.
Murphy, Olson, Snell, Grove. You get that. You get. I mean, you're still punting places.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're still taking basically a Pittsburgh stack can do it. Like a 5-3 Atlanta Pittsburgh makes it work.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Where Michael Taylor, you play at the.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's possible.
No, I mean that's feasible. Like Michael Grove sucks, dude. When I first built this morning, I never built this early, but somebody mentioned that Blake Snell was only 8,600, so I went to go see what you could do with it. Like the first thing that I built was Atlanta Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is in a really good spot too, even if they suck. So it's really interesting. Like I think that people will be inclined to force in Atlanta, and that's going to leave San Diego and the Dodgers as way underowned in good matchups as well, right? Like San Diego arguably has the best matchup on the slate. And I think that it's interesting to talk through this kind of stuff, because we usually just talk about how to solve baseball and the legend of Nootbaar, but it's worthwhile.
What happened to that guy? Where's that guy been?
He's still in the Cardinals. He's good. He actually gets playing time now.
Do you ever roster the Cardinals in MLB DFS?
Yeah, for a while I rostered them like a week straight.
Yeah,
Didn't go well.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
They've been pretty bad. They shouldn't be bad though. That's the thing. Like there
are plenty of teams that shouldn't be bad, but they are.
No, yeah, I know. And St. Louis, but the thing with St. Louis is that their baseline stats, like their advanced stats, are still really good. They're still hitting the ball really well. And like Arenado is still good. Goldschmidt is still good. They still have a lot of good hitters on their team, and they just end up doing nothing. It's kind of like them and the Mets have no right to be as bad as they have been. No right. It makes no sense.
You figure with the Mets lineup, the Mets have what? Lindor and Marte and Alonso, and Nimmo's okay, right? And
yeah, and Tommy Pham, they have Francisco Alvarez. Like that, they have a team. Like they have a good team, and they're just like, nope, we're gonna go 7-14 in the month of June and not score any runs for no reason.
Says Hardy said Arenado's not good. Hardy never said Arenado's not good. He just said Arenado's not as good as what you think he is, because I would say a majority of his career stats were in cores. That's the main. That's all he's saying. I'm not saying he's bad.
Yeah, and like the Arenado thing, he has become a hitter that is almost entirely feast or famine. Like he's into that kind of his power arc, where he was never really like an on-base guy anyway. He was always like,
he wasn't cores only because the outfield was so large, right?
Yeah.
That's the main thing, is that Arenado is more like a Joey Gallo type, Giancarlo Stanton type than people thought before. So basically, his projections in the bat are always pretty low comparison to the rest of the industry, because people are overvaluing some of the doubles and triples and singles and stuff from a majority portion of his career that he was getting them in Coors Field. He's not a 350 OPS hitter. He's not that.
No, and he never will be again in his career. Like he for sure is somebody who at this point, like he's going to hit some opposing field home runs, or he's going to pull some home runs, and like that's mostly what he's good for at this point. But yeah, so you asked me at the beginning of this what I learned through the first half of baseball season.
What you learned, and then also what you're going to be doing over the All-Star break, because I'm assuming that what you should be doing, James, is taking a vacation. Right? That's what you should be doing. But I know you, and you're not going to do that. Yeah. You're going to spend the time, because we have 5 days where you really don't have to do much. You're going to be working on something.
Yeah. Well, I want to finish my tournament sims so I can finally get those up and running for the second half of the season, right? Like, I got to a really good point with it, but then I had to go to a baby shower, and then Damascus got sick, and then Damascus
the
got
good old
Margaret
baby
sick.
shower excuse. I've heard it a million times.
Yeah, well, I basically lost a week and a half of being able to work on that. I had put everything aside. And now Margaret is actually packing up. Hey. Anyway, Margaret is actually,
Meredith in DFS. Let him fight.
Margaret is actually packing up to Damascus to go out because we left something important out in Chicago. So she's packing up Damascus to take him back out to Chicago to go get that thing and then come back. So I have a couple days now where I should be able to do a little bit more work on that contest.
It's like an 8-hour drive.
It's not that bad. Yeah, 8 hours isn't that bad though.
Okay.
She really likes driving. She really likes doing that kind of stuff. So, and then this week and next week, I should be able to finish up those contest sims and get those out and for testing so that people can run their own stuff and like have some fun with it.
I think it would be interesting because Dante mentions in chat about, we learned that all the chalk is hitting at an unbelievable rate this year. I think it's a little bit more than usual, but I mean, I don't know if that's just, like I'm just paying attention to it more to see the correlation coefficient of ownership to fantasy points throughout the course of the season and compared to last season.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see,
or just compared in general, or just to see like how much. I'm not saying that it's going to be anything useful moving forward. It doesn't really tell you anything.
Yeah.
But I've always said about like golf, PGA DFS, or any DFS, it's like when the predictive power of ownership gets higher and higher, that correlation coefficient gets higher and higher to fantasy points, especially more so other metrics, the less and less edge there is in the sporting contests, right? So like, is it that the projections are much better, has been much better this season, hence the teams that are higher owned or higher projected, and they're most likely going to do better, and that the field is catching up to those things, or it just happens to be, oh no, it's not any different than any other season. It's just that we've seen a lot of slates where like heavy chalk does well, but we also seen plenty of slates where like some 1%, like tons of chalk fail. We just don't remember those enough.
Yeah, I would actually say, like, I think that it would be cool to see that correlation coefficient, but I would actually say the chalk has been hitting less this year. I talked about it maybe a month and a half ago that people have become much too confident in projections, and that ownership has just it's ballooned a lot. We have seen more ownership condense this year. I will say that. I think that the chalk has.
Yeah, but I don't know what you're saying. That I mean, dude, I've been playing. Like all you have to do is tell me there's a 31% on one-off and there's 2 home runs. You tell me there's a I'm in the 121 and there's like a 56% owned 5-man stack, and I'm like, okay, this is easy, nothing, fade, whatever. And they put up 12 runs. It's like it seems like it to me. Dante's agrees with me, and I don't know Dante from a hole in the wall, but
I think it's recently. Like when
I think early in James, I think earlier in the season, the pitching chalk was failing all the time. Right? Like pitching projections seem to be all over the place. Now it seems like the pitching projections are much more normalized because obviously we have more data. But dude, like playing the stacks that are nowhere close to like being popular, like seems to be like a lost cause.
No,
it's like I understand like not playing the chalkiest stack, but it's like if you're not gonna, it feels like to me, feel like the main thing is feels. It feels like to me, it's like if I looked at today's slate and I looked at the team totals, I'd be like why am I playing the Mariners? Just don't even bother. Like, it doesn't matter that they're 1% owned or anything like that. The Royals against Joe Ryan, don't even bother. Just you're playing the Minnesota, Cleveland, you're playing the Dodgers, you're playing the Padres, you're playing the Braves, and that's it, and you're done. And
yeah, but I mean, like we saw 4 days ago that Atlanta was all under 10%. And they literally hit 4 home runs off Joe Ryan, like in the first 2 innings. Mm-hmm. And then like hit 5 home runs. Okay, so there's 2 things here, right? There's the difference between what chalk means to different people. And there is understanding and risk aversion when it comes to those things hurting you more than you are gaining when your stacks hit, right? Like we talk about both those things in the book, in Theory DFS, which you should go buy. The definition of chalk, because people ask that question a lot, like how do you define what chalk is? Like how do you define who you're going to fade? Like what, the chalk is the most popular options on the slate. And most popular meaning if one stack, it has an aggregate ownership of 180% and another stack has an aggregate ownership of 110%, the stack that is at 110% aggregate ownership is not the chalk. They have some ownership, but they're not the chalk. They're not the one that is going to have the largest effect on how you do on the slate. The one that is at 180% is. So that's how I define chalk. When it comes to pitcher chalk, like usually we have 3 to 4 pitchers that are owned on DraftKings, right? Like 2 pitchers that are the most popular combination, 2 other pitchers that are the popular pivots off of that combination where you can mix and match those 4, and then the rest, which are like under 15% owned, right? Anybody outside of that top 4 is not chalk, right? So those 4 pitchers in combination with that top overall team to stack at 100% and 180% aggregate ownership, that is the chalk combinations for the slate. Those are the ones that are going to have the largest effect over how you do in a GPP based on how much exposure you have to each one and how you mix and match with other pieces that are leverage off of that chalk, right? So people look at a slate where you have that 180% aggregate chalk, and then you have the 110%, and then you have like an 80% aggregate, right? And if that 110% hits, people are like, oh, the chalk hit. Oh, why are we even fading the chalk? It's like, bro, no, like that 110% was a great pivot off of 180%. Like that 180% has 3 hitters that are 30% owned, and you faded all of them to get on your stack at 110%, which has maybe 2 that are 20% owned and then the rest under. Like you gained a significant amount of leverage over the field by just dropping down one category of ownership threshold. And if you're able to go down from that 180% down to 80% aggregate, and now you have 2 guys that are 15% owned and the rest under, compared to the other stack that is 2 times as highly owned, like people will say, oh, those 2 15% owned hitters hit, like the chalk is always hitting. Like that's not the chalk. That is not the piece.
When I say the chalk, it means, oh, there's a $2,300 one-off that's like 30% owned. Like
right.
And if somebody combinate like those types of situations when it's like, okay, one of the top 5 team total teams did well and they're double-digit owned. Okay, one's 12, one's 15. It's like, okay, this is normal. These are normal slates. Right. If Spencer Strider's 86% owned and puts up 42 points, yeah, the chalk hit 86%. Right. I mean, like that overwhelmingly. I mean, me personally, I'm not a big fan of even the term chalk. Sure. You know me, I'm over-owned, under-owned. So like there's plenty of times, even in baseball, where a pitcher's 38% owned and I think he's under-owned based on the projection. Now, most times, though, hitters that are like 30+% owned are almost always over-owned. Right? So typically those are the most frustrating parts of like, oh, okay. Great. It's an 8-9 game slate, and there's a team that is going to be like 40% owned, and then they put up 12 runs, and it's like, okay, the chalk hit. It could be a slate where the 2 chalky pitchers, the most owned pitchers, both bombed, right? Which means you could have played the 40% owned stack with just 2 other pitchers. You're allowed to make those lineups, but by default, because pitchers are less variant than hitters, I think people tilt more
Right.
when the high-owned hitters do well than the high-owned pitchers, because we expect the high-owned pitchers to do well.
Mm-hmm.
The high-owned hitters, it's like, well, they only got 4 or 5 at-bats, and this is baseball. Who knows what could happen? And next thing you know, Shohei Ohtani's hitting 17 home runs in a game at 800% ownership.
Right. And I mean, like, those instances are going to happen. I think that we have seen we are always going to see popular options end up doing well. They're popular for a reason, right? Like the instances that we have where, I don't know, Jack Sawinski yesterday, if he wasn't on the Pirates, if Jack Sawinski was not on the Pirates, if he was on the Dodgers or even the Phillies, let's call it the Phillies, right? Because this is an example that was just brought up, the Phillies yesterday. Jack Sawinski was like 3% owned leadoff, 2,300 as a lefty up against a righty who has incredible splits, right? Like, he's really, really good against righties. He was 3% owned. If he was on the Phillies, he's probably 35, 40% owned or something like that.
Right.
And those are the kind of situations where you can easily take advantage of the field. And you can play the Phillies yesterday, Dante, with Jack Sawinski and the Pirates, who are nothing owned yesterday, right? Like, it's, even if popular options are doing well, even if chalk is doing well, I think we have had enough instances of the chalk being so condensed that there are incredible leverage plays in every slate, every single slate. We're having terrific spots to just get off of the chalk. Even yesterday, right? Rich Hill crushed. But a great pivot yesterday before he got hurt was the pitcher for Boston. I don't remember what his name was because I'm still tilting the outcome. But, like, he was 6,900. He was a great pivot off of him. And those instances where Rich Hill on FanDuel, we're talking about Rich Hill was 25% owned on FanDuel in single entry contests, which is disgusting. Like, we've seen Rich Hill get obliterated over and over again in the last 3 years. And so 25%
He's also had good outings. He's also had good outings.
And he's also had good outings, right? He's a great GPP pitcher, and you want to play him when he's low owned, not when he's 25% owned.
You can. I mean, we're talking about you can. It's just that
you can.
Typically high variance situations, you benefit more by doing the opposite.
Highlight the fact that he was high owned and that there was a great pivot. There have been great pivots in every single price range for the entire baseball season. I don't think the chalk has been hitting more than.
Well, that's why. Why do you think that goes back to the question? I said during the All-Star break, you have the time to take a look at it.
I'm not gonna take my time to take a look at that.
Work. You said before, you and Cardi, that you guys do the work, and I'm the one that looks.
Yeah, I have other more important work to do than to look at how often the chalk is hitting this year.
Right, Dante needs to know the difference between good chalk and bad chalk, even though those things don't exist. There's no such thing as good chalk and bad chalk. That literally doesn't. That doesn't exist.
To go
there's
back
under-owned and over-owned, but there's no such thing as good chalk and bad chalk.
There are spots that offer you more leverage and spots where you need to leverage your lineup based on eating something. If Spencer Strider's 86% owned and his projection is so high that he should be 94% owned, then I guess that means good chalk. I mean, okay, no. Okay.
I guess that if you're going to define good chalk and bad chalk, then good chalk is a very high-owned player that is still not high enough owned, and bad chalk would be a player that's very high-owned but should not be nowhere near as high-owned. Like, then we're talking the same language. But there's but Jordan, he's going to do well today and he's not going to do well. It's like, no, it's still on the basis of, is his projection worth that ownership? And sometimes, especially we see in basketball, right? Guys projected for $1 million at 3K. It's like, well, he's going to be 92% owned. It's like, yeah, well, he should be 98% owned. So
remember,
that's good chalk, I guess.
At the beginning of this podcast, we talked about how content creation requires you to be a little bit more layman's. That's why.
Yeah, but that's confused because people view good chalk and bad chalk as, oh no, I know he's popular, but he will do well today, and I think that's obviously the wrong.
Okay, that's different. That's a different idea. When I consider good chalk, I think appropriately owned.
Right. So, right. Over owned and under. You think in terms of good chalk means they're popular, but but they project so well that they're underowned. They're still underowned.
Yeah.
Bad chalk means they're overowned. Right. But a lot of people do it as like, oh, a lot of bad chalk is like, oh, a lot of people are playing this guy and he's going to do badly. Like,
right. Yeah.
I like predict outcomes like that in DFS.
Yesterday, the Phillies, like I had them as my top overall. So to speak to that example, Phillies were 20% owned in 121. Like they were the best stack on the day. It doesn't mean that they were like good chalk, but they were appropriately owned. I think that they probably should have been higher owned. So like understanding that and understanding how much ownership you should be able to assign to a stack and whether they are over that ownership, that's where you start getting into the idea of good chalk and bad chalk. Like I think that when people are talking about good chalk and bad chalk, they're talking about it after the fact, right? Where like people are like, oh, well, the Phillies were good chalk yesterday because they did well. And it's like, that is completely besides the point of how you derive whether they are good or bad chalk.
Are the Atlanta Braves going to be good chalk today? I don't think they're going to be that owned.
Bro, they're going to be like 40% owned.
Well, I'm going to fade them tonight.
Especially if Michael Grove is projecting well on the bat at 5,300. Especially if Michael Grove is projecting well.
I'm not going to play the Braves,
dude. It's
that's the case.
It's the month of the Padres, bro. We're playing the Padres.
What's in the Padres today?
I'm playing the Padres.
Because you said so. What did the Padres look like? The Padres. I mean, we got some cheap people in here. I mean, we can play. Dude. Oh, we got. This is look at this lineup now. Imagine rostering the bottom of this lineup and just like hating your life.
You don't have to roster the whole thing. Okay, here's how you do it. You go Trent Grisham, you do a wraparound. Trent Grisham, Fernando Tatis Jr., Juan Soto. There's your outfield. And then you go with Manny Machado and Gary Sanchez.
How does this team score any runs when once you're halfway through the order, you get 17 strikeouts in a row? I mean, like, look at this.
What do you?
I know it's Jaime Barria, but I mean, it's just like this lineup. Now I see what the Padres don't do very well. Tatis is fine, right? Soto walks 700 times. Machado probably grounds into double plays. Bogarts gets fly balls, and then you got strike. You got the rest. Cronenworth strikes out, and then Sanchez strikes out, and then Carpenter is a weak dribbler to first base. Rougned strikes out twice and one at bat, and Trent Grisham hits a pop up. And welcome to the Padres. Anytime anyone gets on base, like Tatis and Soto and Machado and Bogarts all get on base, and then it's strikeout. I mean, like. You wonder why the Padres don't do well. But hey, if they do actually hit the ball, this isn't a bad line.
Hold on. Okay. Yes, that's funny. Matt Carpenter currently has the highest strikeout rate on the Padres, 26%. All right. Trent Grisham is not.
Rougned Odor doesn't have a high strikeout rate. Gary Sanchez.
Not right now. No, not high. Not higher than Gary Sanchez is up there. He's at 26% as well. But he at least has power, right? Like Matt Carpenter.
How about Cronenworth? Cronenworth's over 20.
Cronenworth is, yeah, he's over 20, but it's not.
See, there you go.
Dude, okay, look. So typically, first off, I'm going to defend the Padres.
I think I'm playing Barria tonight. I'm looking at this going, I think maybe he gets 16 strikeouts. Let's go.
He's not going to get 16 strikeouts. Going to give up. Barria is going to give up 4 runs today, and then they're going to get to the bullpen, and the Angels bullpen sucks, and the Padres are going to score 9 runs today with 4 home runs. Usually they have Ha-Seong Kim instead of Matt Carpenter, or instead of Rougned Odor. I don't remember.
Right, and Kim barely strikes out.
Kim has been great. Yeah, he's been awesome. I think that Trent Grisham is pretty good. Yeah, Matt Carpenter and Rougned Odor suck for sure. But we don't have to. If we were to say that a team has to have only hitters that are really good, we would only have the Braves. That's it. Who's the worst hitter on the Braves? Let's go take a look at the Braves here.
Michael Harris, I guess.
It's Rosario, right?
No. It's it would be Arcia.
What do you? Okay.
I think Arcia makes more contact, but Rosario is a better power hitter. Just that he strikes out too much.
Arcia has the worst X slug over the last month at just 380.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. From a
Just
fantasy perspective,
380.
RC is the worst because he doesn't really hit the ball far.
No, just 380. That's the point that I'm trying to make here. Their worst hitter has an X-Lug of 380. That is
380 over what period? The season?
bonkers over the last month and a half.
A month and a half. You and your little well, in the past 6 weeks, it's with whatever.
Yeah,
Like,
no, but think about what they've done over the last month. It's ridiculous.
okay, you pay these prices. You go and look at the inflation here. Come on, you go pay for this stack.
I'm not playing.
This isn't going to be as popular as you think. How about let's make a bet?
Okay. All right.
Okay.
What are your terms?
So a 5-man Atlanta stack. So what do you think that the high? Okay, let's come up with a number.
Okay.
Okay, what the highest owned 5-man Brave stack in what are we talking about? The 121? Or are we talking about the 15? We're talking about the large field GPP.
Well, let's say the 121.
I was gonna let's do the large field.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Because things go all over the place in the 121. So in the large field, so we're going by the ownership that we currently have here, right? The bad ownership or whatever. Like based on the ownership that the bat shows right here, the top 5-man stack, regardless of the price, 19 plus 18 plus 15 plus 13 plus 10. Right. So we're talking about 40, 55, 65, 7, about 5 batters, about 80% total ownership.
Sure.
Right. You go definitely above that.
Oh yeah.
Do you think it's over? I would say it's under the top owned Brave stack. Right, is going to be under five batters. I would say under 110.
I'll take over.
You'll take over.
Easily take over. Yeah.
Okay. So
but
talking about the main relay throw, the main GPP.
Yeah, bet you $100 on it. Over 110% aggregate ownership.
$100?
$100.
Okay, let's do it.
Cool. All right.
Done. Yeah.
Great.
They can.
All right. Cool. Yep. Over 110% aggregate ownership. I think that Acuna by himself is going to be like 35 to 40% owned. And then just got to fill in the blanks on the rest of them. I think him and Sean Murphy.
Acuna has a one-off, sure. Yeah, but I mean, I just don't see how you.
As a 5-man stack, I think that the 5-man stack that is most likely is going to be Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Sean Murphy, Orlando Arcia, and either Marcell Ozuna or Eddie Rosario. One of those two. And I think that's going to be over 110% aggregate ownership.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
You know what thing, you know what we talked about earlier? You know what your work is? It's like, you and Cardi.
Yep.
Making your models, making your X slugs and your regression stuffs and everything like that. You know what my biggest skill is? The art of understanding human beings and how they operate and how that affects ownership.
Eric, my guy, nobody cares that you like the Angels. They're up against Snell. I don't care. I'm sorry. I don't care. The Angels, you can play the Angels in a large field for sure.
Well, that's leverage. I mean, they're going to be barely owned against the highest owned pitcher.
Yeah. In fact, pair them with the Braves if you can. And you're going to have to use 2 relief pitchers, but go for it.
Or you just or what you do is you stack the Angels with the Giants against the Woo.
There you go. Yeah, literally stack against the 2 most underpriced pitchers on the slate by far.
Yeah. It could work. Hey, you can make a lineup like that. There's no reason you can't.
No, for sure, absolutely. I was just gonna say you would have plenty of leverage for large field GPP. Plenty of leverage.
I mean, probably too much leverage.
I was gonna say probably too much leverage.
Probably you don't need not to go that.
Not only would you be stacking against, you'd get direct leverage against the highest owned pitcher on the slate, but also you would not be able to afford the other highest owned hitters on the slate
and also you wouldn't be able to play the other highest owned pitcher on the slate as well. So I mean,
too much leverage, but go for it. Go for it.
Have fun. You have money. Yep. People could find you, James. Paydirt _ DFS on Twitter if you could use Twitter.
Yeah, if your rate limit has not been exceeded, you can find me over on Twitter at Pater_DFS. If your rate limit has been exceeded, then you can find all the models over at PaterDFS.com. You can also join the Discord. It's free. We hang out and
There's
talk
no
about
rate limit in the Discord?
I'm not yet, but Elon is a trendsetter, so maybe we'll see some more rate limit stuff happening in other social medias.
Right. Have you ever seen a model where this is a social media site, and we're going to limit the amount of things that you could read?
I understand.
It's an advertising based social. Imagine a newspaper, right? Or anything like that. It's like yeah, sure, we'll deliver the newspaper, but after about 3 pages, you can't read it anymore. And the advertisers on page 12 are like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you doing? What do you mean they can only read? But I'm advertising on the whole newspaper, but they can only read 3 articles."
I think I understand why he is trying to do. Like I tweeted
it because he didn't pay his cloud bill.
Right? Yeah. That's I understand why that is happening.
Business or anything? He just he got the bill in the mail, or right? He got a late notice with the red bar in the mail in the envelope that says you're delinquent or whatever, and he threw it on the
billionaires don't get mail through the USPS, Jordan.
Whatever, but I mean that essentially that's what happened.
Yeah, no, but I understand. One, he didn't pay his bill, right? Like we can agree on that. Like that's the funny part of this. But I can understand why he would be limiting access to certain things at some point. I tweeted it before that
I couldn't see it.
I think the end game. I think the end game for what Musk is trying to do is to incrementally limit what free accounts can do until the only reason to have Twitter is to pay for it.
Right. That's when it dies because not enough people that's not a good business model. All I know is from all these debacles with them is that there's no possible way that I ever own a Tesla.
No.
Like, look at all the software problems that he can't. Yeah. Good luck. I'm gonna drive in a car that has almost no controls, right? Yeah. And has to rely on software. Like, get out of there.
I'm getting an electric after the live final, and Margaret was like, "Well, are you gonna get a Tesla?" I'm like, "No, I'm not gonna touch a Tesla. Not after all this stuff."
So you're gonna get a new car after? Is that? No matter what happens at the live final?
Yeah, no matter what happens. It's just like I still have like all the winnings from taking down the tournament. Like I still have that in cash. And I'm just waiting until we see how much more I make at the live final so that I know kind of like what the price range is. Because there's the list of electric cars you can buy of like here's the low end, here's the medium end, here's the high end, right? And I just
buy the low end.
What's up?
Just buy the low end.
No, I'm not like you. I like cars.
No, that's what I'm saying. Why? What's the difference?
I like cars.
It gets you from point A to point B. You're done.
The low end of the Hyundai Iconic is just not.
It doesn't move. It's that bad. It doesn't.
It's just not cool.
It's not cool. Who are you impressing in Clarksville, Tennessee?
Me. It's dude.
You don't leave your house. What are you doing?
I would leave my house more if I had a car that I like.
To who? To impress who?
Me. Somewhere. It's not about impressing people. It's about working. It's about having things that you like.
I like having money.
I know you do.
And not spending it on stuff that doesn't mean anything.
I know. But yeah, anyway, I'm just waiting on that, and I'm definitely not getting a Tesla because that's silly.
Okay, so tomorrow is Grinders Live. I don't know when it's going to be. It depends on when the slates come out. I should be on the whatever the early slate is. Me and Dean should be on that show. So you're not going to see a pregame show thumbnail, I don't believe. Then we got Wednesday. We got Thursday. Send in your questions. Questions at theoryofdfs.com. Questions at theoryofdfs.com to be covered on the show. Then Friday we got a pay-per-view, UFC pay-per-view coming up. So take a look at that on Friday, and then next week, Monday through Thursday, for the All-Star break, there'll be no shows. There'll be no me, no anything. No anything here. We'll be gone. It's a nice little vacation, and yeah. So send me questions. I need more questions for the shows. Questions at theoryofdfs.com because you submit them and I answer them. That's what I do here Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.